Hello. I want to start off by pointing out something pretty cool. One thing that you might not often see is the homepage of GitHub when you're not logged in. If you go to this page and scroll down a bit, you get into their community section, and listed here is a guy called Russell. Russell runs this little project called BeeWare. BeeWare is a series of application libraries, tools, and widgets that let you run cross-platform native applications in Python. Consider the conundrum. You want to write an application. Say you're an Australian developer working with a bunch of Americans, and they keep telling you the temperature in Fahrenheit, but you're more familiar with Celsius, so you want to build a temperature converter. So here is a mock-up of the sort of app you might want to write. We have a field called Fahrenheit, and we have a disabled field called Celsius. When we enter a number into the Fahrenheit field and click Calculate, it will return us the conversion in the Celsius field. So we know what we want our app to do, but how do we go about writing it? It depends what platform we want to target. If we want to build a web app, we're going to have to use JavaScript, HTML, and CSS if we want it to look pretty. If you want to build it for an iPhone, you're going to have to use Swift. But if you want it for Android, you're going to have to use Java. And if you want your app to not just be client-side but server-driven, you're going to need Python or PHP or something similar for the server side. And that's not even considering if you want this application to run on Windows or Linux. This is where BeeWare comes in. Instead of having to learn a dozen different programming languages and markup dialects, we can just use one, Python. But why Python? Python is a highly versatile language, accessible to newcomers, yet with enough grunt for heavy lifting, powering sites such as Instagram. It's designed for teaching, works on every platform, and is free and open source software. To see just how BeeWare works, here is an example application written in Toga. Toga is the widget toolkit in BeeWare. We define an application with widgets declared by Toga, and when it comes time to run the code on the host platform, we use the Toga abstraction to call the base widgets. This means that on Apple, we get Apple buttons, on Android, we get Android buttons, and so on. The reason that we do all this is we want our applications to look like they belong. We want our applications to look and feel native. If any user can tell that the app that they're using is made with something other than native proper languages and is made with BeeWare, then we failed. Your end user shouldn't and doesn't care what your app is written in. They just want to use the thing. Speaking of the thing, here is our thing. We import Toga, we define a class, a calculate function, which takes our Fahrenheit input and outputs Celsius. We then have our startup definition. We initialize our window and we create boxes. We create two inputs, one for Celsius, which is read-only, and one for Fahrenheit. We then create some labels and a button. On the button, we have onPress self-calculate, which we'll call our calculate function. We then put all our boxes inside the other boxes and show the window. Last thing we do is call the main method, which tells Python when we run this, we want to run the Freedom app. From here, we pip install Toga and then run the Freedom module in Python. And we get our application. It's just like our mockup. It has a Fahrenheit field, a Celsius field, a calculate button, and a bunch of labels. But this application only runs when we run Python on our system. We want this application to be portable. This is where Briefcase comes in. With just a little bit more work, we can make this application portable onto many different platforms. There is a little bit of template work required before we can get there though. Thankfully, we have an app that can help us there. At BeeWare, we don't just shave bespoke Tibetan yaks. We are more than happy to use store-bought yaks and we contribute back financially, such as we do with Cookie Cutter. With Cookie Cutter, you can create a project template with replacement fields, and with a little CLI work, you can create a new structure for your app, project, recipe, anything you like. So, we pip install Cookie Cutter and Briefcase, and then we use the PyBee Briefcase template with Cookie Cutter. We declare an app name, a formal name, a description, some author information, and then the bundle. We copy in our file from before into a specific place in our new folder structure. Then we can run python setup.py macOS, and then we can have our application. The -s in this case not only creates the template, but also starts the application in a local emulator. This is the exact same as we had before, except now, in our folder, we have a freedom.app file which we can copy around different macOS systems, and the application will work. If we want to target a different platform, we use setup.py.ios and we get an iOS application. Same thing again with any other platform. Python setup.py Android will give us an Android application. Linux, a Linux application. Windows, a Windows application. And Django, a Django-backed, Bootstrap-driven website. But what else can we do? We've just been talking about fields and buttons. The more widgets we have, the more possibilities there are. So we create a class called Grays. We create a startup method, which initializes our window. And then for this widget, we're going to be using a web view. We have an input target, which is the URL we want, and we have a button. When we click the button, it'll load our page. We're calling this Grays because with a web view, we are now creating a browser. So if we run python grays.py, we get a browser window that we can run as a standalone application. And we can see the GitHub website from before. But that's not all. Given that we can target Django as a platform, we can run python setup.py Django, and we can get our Grays application, which is a browser, inside a browser. That's pretty cool. Another example is this presentation. This entire presentation has been made with Podium. Podium is an application in the BeeWare stack which uses Toga and creates an application which allows us to present slides. We have a slides window and a notes window. Podium, as well as every other aspect of the BeeWare stack, is available on GitHub. So that's one part of the BeeWare story. But BeeWare is not just code. Bees? We mention bees a lot. We like bees so much in our project that we named it after bees. We also named different aspects of our project based on various puns and bee analogies. In our nomenclature, we have different levels of members that have different names that are just as fun as our project names. A bee is anyone that works on a project. Core team members tend to bees, so they're known as apiarists. For anyone who knows GitHub like the back of their hand, they don't bat an eyelid when it comes to when they come across some open source software on GitHub that they want to contribute to. They know exactly what to do to submit a patch. It's just as easy as logging into your GitHub account, finding the repo, forking the repo, cloning the code to your machine, creating a branch, creating a commit, pushing that branch to your fork, and then creating a pull request based on your branch. And sure, there's documentation on GitHub for all these concepts, but for someone that's just starting out, there's nothing like sitting down with someone to learn who wants to help you learn. Pair programming is wonderful because you don't know where to look. You don't know how to describe the things that you want to know about. And Google doesn't help you when you don't even know what you're searching for. If you're lucky enough to be working in a job where there is a senior programmer that is willing to do this sort of thing, then good for you. Do that more. But if you don't have that, you're stuck fumbling around in the dark. This is why we run sprints. I'm using the term sprint here, not in the Agile sense, but in the Python world sense. At Python and Django conferences, say after a day of workshops, a few days of talks, organizers will typically hold on to some of the venue space or a nearby location, kit it out with power and internet, and let attendees use the space for a few days after the event as a hacking space. This time is normally unstructured, but it's an absolutely amazing feature of many conferences in the Python and Django world. You've spent a few days meeting new people, listening to talks, and your brain is swarming with new ideas. I mean, you've traveled how far to be around these people, so why not take advantage of their physical locality? Why not use the days immediately following a conference to take a look at that new Python trick you learned about, or help out with the project that you're interested in while the people from that project are sitting right next to you? This is something that we in the BeeWare team have found to be amazing, not just for introducing people to our project and gaining contributions, but both that and also introducing first-timers to open source contribution in general. One of the first sprints that we ever ran, there was a young lady there who on day one didn't even have a GitHub account. On day two, she was not only submitting pull requests, but also helping other people get their heads around GitHub basics. And sure, there are some people that are more than happy to do this out of the kindness of their hearts because they want to help the new generation of open source contributors, or they want to get those little green squares on their GitHub profile. But at BeeWare, we have something a little bit more substantial. Thanks to generous funding from MaxCDN and RevSys, we've made challenge coins. Anyone who contributes to BeeWare gets a nice little shiny. The A side has a Tiberius yak, which is our toga logo, with confirmed yak shaver written on it. And the B side has Brutus, our project mascot, with the project name and tagline. Any contributions count. It does not have to be code. We've given out coins for people giving talks on BeeWare, helping fix our tutorials, giving us marketing and fundraising advice, and so much more. Not only that, with thanks to GitHub, we have a second coin. The Yak Herder coin is for those that help others earn their Yak Shaver coin. We've given this out to those people who help other bees at sprints, or our core developers who are always reviewing pull requests, responding on Gitter, and other community grooming and community maintaining social activities. As part of conferences apiarists have spoken at, we've run sprints all over the world. These sprints are normally 2 days, so it takes some time for first-time contributors to get up to speed with the project, set up their environment, and work out what they want to work on before submitting their first pull request. But depending on the size of our sprint, our GitHub pull request history can look a little bit like this. A dozen or so pull requests in the same hour. For every pull request we have, we run a bunch of continuous integration tests. We need to test a lot because we're doing some pretty complex stuff and we want to make sure that everything is working properly. We do some of these tests in some of our projects 10,000 times to make sure everything's working. And we sometimes run into trouble with the sheer amount of tests that we run. There are a bunch of services that offer free plans for continuous integration testing, such as Travis CI and Circle CI. However, their base plans often don't allow for any sort of concurrency. These services are wonderful. For smaller projects, they're brilliant because they have free plans where you can have one test running at a time. But when we have a sprint, I'm not saying that we accidentally DDoSed these services before, but other projects have come up to us asking where Travis went because it's not responding. Because we have up to 20 people sitting in a room all wanting their PRs to run, and things get slow. So both these services have given us temporary free upgrades so we can increase our concurrency, and that's been absolutely great. But they were only once-off bumps. We need something that we can spin up whenever we run a sprint so we can make sure that we handle all our tests as quickly as we can. So we built our own continuous integration system. Beekeeper is our system for tending to bees. Like Travis or Circle CI, for your project, you define what tests you want to run, and then you integrate that project into a continuous integration system using GitHub webhooks. Anytime somebody creates or edits a pull request, GitHub sends a webhook, which we listen for, and run tests on the code based on what's changed in the PR. You can set up Beekeeper yourself using AWS's container service and editing your configurations to suit. as well as declaring profiles. So if some projects need bigger resources to run tests, you can handle that as well. All we're doing is just telling the system, hey, you have this script to run, go run it. We can scale up the amount of instances that we need, and we can also take advantage of AWS's free tier. So when we're not doing sprints, our footprint and our costs are very small. If you are interested in what we've been doing with BeeWare, you can find more on our website, pybee.org, or on Twitter, where we post what we're up to and retweet cute pictures of bees. BeeWare is still a work in progress, and we would appreciate any help, either in development time or financially, to get the framework into a state where it can be the go-to open source way to write native applications in Python. Thank you for your time.